Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show. It's Wednesday. It's the top of the week, and so it's a high water mark for us when we have these next two guests with us. Please welcome for This Week in Politics, the Wednesday edition, Andy Gibbons, principal at Wallgate Advisory, and Regan Watts, the founder of Fratton Park and former senior aide to Jim Flaherty. To the both of you, I say happy Wednesday.
Bonjour, mon cher Midwich.
All right, so we're talking about the NDP leadership race. It's there may be one new person added to that list, as he is $10,000 short of the $100,000 admission fee to join that race, but there are still some hurdles for him to clear. I'm talking about agitator extraordinaire, troublemaker, rabble-rouser, a generally unproductive member of society. Oh, and also anti-Semite of the highest order, Yves Engler. And it looks like he's trying to get in. He's trying to get in. Guys, what do you think? It would be better for the NDP to welcome him in and fight him out over his ideas, or keep him out because he really is he's a toxic and terrible human being?
I couldn't agree with you more about Mr. Engler and your description of him. Anti-Semite extraordinaire is an understatement, to put it mildly. I think his entry into the race would benefit the NDP, if only because they need the money. You know, $100,000 is something that would go a long way for a party that's essentially broke and heading towards bankruptcy. And it is part of the legacy left behind by Jagmeet Singh, who is the most useless federal politician in the history of Canada. And I put him even more useless than Justin Trudeau, because at least in the case of the long national nightmare, he did win an election 4 times. With respect to the federal political scene and his entry and what it means for the NDP race, I think it means something depending on where you sit. If you're a conservative, you don't actually like his entry, not because him getting into scuffles with other NDP candidates doesn't make for good politics and good television, but it further drives the NDP towards irrelevance. It is now a party of pink and purple-haired activists who love Hamas, the West Bank, and the state of Palestine, and not the working class party that you and I and Andy grew up with Broadbent and Dewar and Mr. Ray and people like that. So it's not good from a conservative perspective. From a liberal perspective, you almost want to donate to Mr. Engler's campaign, because the more useless the NDP are, the better it is for Liberal Party of Canada. So I think on a net positive for anybody, it's the Liberals. But Mr. Engler, in my view, adds nothing to Canadian public life.
Well, and Andy, I want to read something from the Globe and Mail for you, because listen, we gotta take the good and the bad. We gotta be honest about the things. He does have backing, right? He's not just shouting into a vacuum. He does represent a particular voice. He's backed by the Socialist Caucus of the NDP. That can't be insignificant. And he expressed concern on Monday with the vetting committee. This is the issue. They think that they're going to ban him. And he went on to say that this vetting committee would have probably found reason to ban Zoran Mamdani. So I think Yves Engler views himself as sort of an acolyte of Mamdani. And he says party vetting is a threat to democracy. There's nothing Yves Engler can't turn up to 11. It's a threat to democracy, he said in an email. Differences of political opinion should be determined by the membership, not a 3-person backroom committee. What do you think of that?
Well, we're talking about him, right? He needs media attention and headlines. It was funny, Ben, you mentioned the socialist group of the caucus endorses him. I didn't know there was another part of the caucus.
I think the whole thing was the Socialist Caucus.
Yeah, all of them, I guess. So, you look at this leadership race. I was looking at this. There's a organic farmer, a social worker, a union leader, a filmmaker, and now we have, at best, you could describe him as an agitator.
Yeah.
Now, if you're too extreme for the NDP, that tells you where the NDP is and who what support base they have left.
Yeah, I agree.
He's gonna get a coverage. He's going to get donations, and whether or not he's allowed in or not, he's gonna have an impact on this race.
Yeah.
Now, you wanted it to be a reality show. You asked, should it be a reality show? If no one's actually watching the NDP leadership race, who's going to watch a show about the NDP leadership race?
Well, if it were executive produced by Kim Kardashian, I think a lot of people would tune in. Just saying. Let's move on to our next topic, guys, because Regan Watts is actually going to name check Regan Watts. He was referenced in this article by John Ivison about how the Liberals are loving the bad blood that has infected the Conservative Party. And near the end of the article, there was a great attention was paid to caucus management, how important the caucus is to various conservative leaders. My father, I don't think you'll get any pushback from a lot of people who know about caucus management that he could have written the book on how to treat your caucus, how to keep them on side, even in tough times. Regan goes on to say, what do you say? He said, quote, he, referencing Pierre Poilievre, continues to be a fork in a world full of soup. That's an excellent line, my friend. He's got to figure out how to be a spoon. For the Liberals, the event of the last week has been political bliss, enough chaos to make the Conservatives look as unelectable as the NDP, but not so much that the leader is ousted. Regan, maybe you can expand on your fork and spoon imagery.
Well, I'll take it one step further and talk agriculture. You mentioned your father, Ben, and he is the gold standard with respect to caucus management. Prime Minister Harper, when he was leader and then became prime minister, was not the type of man who filled his caucus with warm and fuzzies, but he did listen to them and he did respect them. I worked for Minister Flaherty. We spent countless nights with caucus consulting on the budget. And when Minister Flaherty tabled the disaster of a fall economic statement in 2008, which nearly toppled the government of Stephen Harper, nobody in caucus called for his head, and that's in part because Jim had built up enough goodwill with his colleagues, and they were his colleagues, and he viewed them as such. And by the way, so did Prime Minister Harper, even though he was party leader, that you didn't see caucus calling for either the Prime Minister's head or Minister Flaherty's head at that difficult time. Contrast that with Mr. Poilievre. He treats his caucus like he's a mushroom farmer. And if anybody who knows anything about mushrooms is you grow them in the dark and you feed them with nature's fertilizer. I can't use the word that I'm thinking because it's live radio, but you get my point. And if you treat caucus like a bunch of mushrooms and keep them in the dark and feed them a bunch of bull, eventually they're going to get agitated and not be pleased with your leadership. It was only a matter of time. You can't rule with fear for as long as Mr. Poilievre has. And again, I go back to the state of play at the top of the ticket. To get elected in this country, you do not have to be better than the almighty. You just have to be better than the alternative. And Mr. Poilievre, to my quote, he is a fork in a world full of soup and has to become a spoon. He has to figure out a way to adjust his tone, adjust his approach, and bring people along. And he's not done that yet. And he still has time. And look, it's entirely conceivable he remains leader and even wins the next election. But he's got to make some changes.
Yeah. Andy, we don't have a lot of time left, so if you don't get to complete your thought here, we'll pick it up on the other side of the break. But if you take everything Regan said, and I think he said it very, very well, if you take his assessment as fact, then we have to, I guess you got to ask yourself, is this lack of ability by Pierre Poilievre to manage the expectations and the disparate voices inside his caucus, is that a bug or a feature? In other words, is that who he is, or is this something that can be fixed?
I think it's something that can be fixed. And to be fair to him, I think he's getting a bit of a raw deal. I mean, he did assemble the biggest coalition of voters since your father for the Conservative Party. That is a true statement. But he also assembled the largest coalition of Canadians who don't want him to be Prime Minister of Canada. And I think, this is going to be the telling winter for him. Yeah. Now, I don't have a chunky soup reference like Regan, but I also want to say, liberal arrogance and glibness over this is reaching high levels even for them. I think they're a little too glib and sure of themselves here. And I think they should be careful. I think sometimes they think they have a mandate that they don't have, and they should just be really careful and get down to business and be very workmanlike and not glee in others' difficulties.
Well, and I agree with big chunks of what both of you said. I think that they dodged a bullet by having this distraction keep people's eyes off of the budget. But the conversation around the budget is far from over. In fact, it's going to accelerate as people dig into that more before it actually comes to the confidence vote of it becoming law. And until then, if they don't have something else to distract us with, people are going to pay attention to this thing that increasingly I'm hearing from people. It's just not a great budget. I think a lot of us expected more from the big brain of Mark Carney. But we will, of course, talk about that in the days and weeks ahead. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about Mark Carney because in this weekend, he's set to release even more major projects out of the office. And we're going to see if this is like Santa coming early. Don't go anywhere. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.